Online Dynasty, you have committed. Rumor has it the paperwork is in. JD PicKell, I would like you to make the announcement on what team you are selecting for the Crane & Company College Football Sports Media Online Dynasty of Friendship, Truth, and Determination.
First, that league name is phenomenal. There's been a lot of conferences. That's the best one.
Thank you, sir.
I want to thank everyone who's supported me throughout this process, from my parents to my wife to my friends. It's been a long road. There was a point in time where it looked like my commitment was going to be going somewhere else within the Maction. I'm excited to announce I'll be signing my letter of intent. The paperwork is in to Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Wow.
Eastern.
EMU, it's official. Got North Korea class.
Big win for Ypsi right there.
Hey, proud of you, kid. Proud of you.
Already been vetted.
No, JD's.
Don't sneak over into Ann Arbor now.
You know, we got to get Pete back. We got to get Sneaky Pete on here because you know he's going to be joining you in the MAC. I think that's where I think there was a Fong bomb that got dropped for a place there in the MAC. But JD, let's get to some stuff that's not as important as that, but it's a little bit important. If you look, there's some reports coming out that if there is a CBA, right, with the players, that you could see within that CBA them having to play in the bowl game to honor that quote-unquote contract, which would eliminate opt-outs, right? And now if you're injured, that's a different thing, because they did a survey and it averaged out to, I believe, 8 players per team opted out of a bowl game last year. What are your thoughts on a CBA overall? Because just like anything in life, there's some pros, there's some cons. Where do you kind of fall when it comes to a collective bargaining agreement for the players of college football? And, do you think it's a good thing, bad thing, or kind of in between?
I like the idea of it. Just the thought around getting that many players to sign on to play in a bowl game when it seems like there's already been, as that stat just mentioned, like a pretty fair percentage of guys that are like, hey, actually, I'm cool. I want to sit this one out. I'll take the bowl gear. I'll watch from the sideline, but I'm going to be a first-round pick. Like, I'm not going to sign anything that's in any way going to jeopardize that. So I think our head's in the right spot. I don't know that that's going to be the proper execution to get that done. I think more structure is always good as long as the right people are in charge and calling the right shots with the best interest of the guys in the game. But I don't know how doable this is. It kind of feels like to me, boys, the genie's out of the bottle on the whole bowl game situation. And I hate it. It hurts my heart. I love bowl mania. I'm locked in every single Christmas. But even with that being said, I think we're kind of too far down that road.
Well, and what stops somebody from saying, oh, my ankle? What are you going to do?
Right.
Prove them wrong? Like you always have the out of, my elbow or I'm sick, there's an illness, something like that. And then you see coaches like Kirby Smart talking to Kamari Lassiter saying, hey, listen, you need to go to the NFL draft, right? You're probably going to be a top 2 round pick. The choice to play in the bowl game is yours. I'll understand it either way. So I'm with you, JD. I think since we don't have any rules, the thought of just having some rules kind of makes you feel good, like it's getting fixed. But Cone, I mean, if those rules are, if you can't enforce them, what's the point of having the rules?
Yeah, it just seems like, look, you're going to have guys, if there's a collective bargaining agreement, they're going to sign on to get paid throughout the season. And then if they're projected to be a first-round pick, or maybe not even, maybe in just, hey, I'm going to get drafted this year, they're going to figure out a way to get out of that bowl game if they don't want to play.
It does seem that way.
JD, every week it seems like we talk about Deion Sanders. A lot of that's his doing because he's a PR genius. He's also very polarizing. This week getting into wars with ex-players from the transfer portal and all that kind of stuff. How do you see this situation playing out with Colorado? Is this going to be a net positive for the team? And is Colorado going to have a better season this upcoming year than they did last year?
I do think they'll have a better season than last year. And that's not saying a ton because last year you win 4 ball games, you're abysmal on defense, the line of scrimmage is just bad on both sides of the ball. So like the bar is set pretty low, got a first-round quarterback clearly. So I think they'll be better on the field. Now, are they going to be as good as they are talking like they're going to be? I don't know if that's attainable in year 2. And my big thing too is I have no problem with cutting players. I have no problem. I think a lot of people just saw that quote graphic from The Athletic and are like, oh, Deion's a jerk. If you actually read through that article, it has a lot of quotes from a lot of other players that are like, yeah, Deion was pretty straight with me. He told me he's going to cut players. I understand it. They got to win. I hit the portal.
Yeah. Positivity doesn't sell, JD. You know that.
That's what I'm saying. And so the whole thing, I think, got just kind of taken out of context and they ran with it. But my thing is if I'm a head coach in college football, and saying, I got time. Maybe you shouldn't have time.
Yeah, that's what I said to you.
Smart.
Yeah.
He didn't have time. Ryan Day doesn't have time. Nick Saban never had time. Yeah. So it's like, hey, maybe we should follow suit a little bit. I'm all for Deion Sanders doing his own thing, and that's what's made him Deion Sanders, and he's kind of blazed his own trail. But like, to some degree, let's follow a blueprint. Let's do in-home visits. Let's not tweet at 18 to 22-year-olds. Like, let's just kind of go about our business. And then when we make a bowl game, when we win more than 8 games, then we can start to talk our cash a little bit more and kind of get ourselves out of the spotlight. Not a fan of Deion tweeting at kids.
Yeah, well, it's he's kind of taken the opposite route of under promise and over deliver.
Yeah,
like he's like going at it like the other way. And some people kind of conflated what I opened the show with yesterday, talking about Deion Sanders. Again, JD, I'm with you, and it's amazing talking about cutting players. It's amazing. People forget. You ever heard the term processed? Remember when guys used to get gray shirted or blue shirted, and then they would get cut with no transfer portal freedom? People tend to forget about that a lot. It happens at a lot of places. Now, there's not cameras in the room and the coach saying, here's your Louis, or I'm bringing my luggage with me. Yeah. You don't see that, but it does happen. Guys get told, listen, your best interest, this happens in high school. You may need to go to a smaller high school to be able to play, right? It's in your best interest. And if you don't leave, then I'm with Deion. I don't blame him for doing that. But conflating that with tweeting at an 18 to 20-year-old, person, which, again, if you're tweeting the right things, I don't have a problem with it. That, to me, was just immature. Those are two different things. So I wanted to make sure I kind of, split the bean there.
It's funny. He says he doesn't have time, but then he gets on Twitter and has time.
Yeah, so, it says he has time.
Yeah, it says he has time. So it's kind of
JD. Hold on, I want you to expound on just one point there, because you said Colorado has a first-round quarterback. Clearly, now we just watched Spencer Rattler play really good football on a not-so-good team in South Carolina and then fall all the way to the 5th round in the NFL draft. A lot of teams saying, hey, we didn't like his attitude back in high school when he was coming out. So when you say Shedeur Sanders is a first-round quarterback, clearly, is that just like a no-brainer a year from now? Or if we see more behavior like this, is he going to slip in the NFL draft if they go 5-7 this year?
Yeah, I think from an ability standpoint, and I'm not a scout or an NFL draft guy, but based on those numbers in Vegas, everyone is projecting him to be in that first round. So I'm kind of trusting that. But no, I think what you said is on the money. Like, if Spencer Rattler is getting dinged for something he did in high school, we got Shedeur Sanders tweeting at guys and talking about how former teammates must have been mid. He doesn't remember them. It's like, if I'm an NFL scout, that doesn't fire me up to make you the face of our franchise. And I had a story I told in our show yesterday. When I was a sophomore in college, I went to my brother's high school basketball game. Brother got fouled hard. I made a scene. I got tossed. Now, I was going to defend my brother. Like, I was like trying to, be on the front line. But if Shannon Terry was in the room when I got tossed in the basketball game, he's probably not hiring me. So, like, when I see Shedeur Sanders going to defend his dad on Twitter, like, that's all well and good. I get where he's coming from. That's your dad. That's your guy. But, like, at the same time, man, like, you have NFL GMs watching everything you're doing. Like, help Shedeur Sanders a year from now. It's not worth a tweet to drop 10 spots in the draft or whatever it's going to end up being. So I have to believe that with as much homework as we see these teams do year in and year out, like, Shedeur Sanders is going to have some questions to answer about opening for Lil Wayne, all the stuff that he likes to do off the field that aren't bad things, but it's just like, hey, you got so many things going on off the field. How into football are you? Would be my first question when it comes to all the extracurriculars.
Well, number one, it's just like you said, it's a bad business decision. That's what it boils down to. It's just a bad business decision. And number two, I think we've got to understand the market that just got drafted, and then what we're going to have next year at the quarterback position. While there's some good players, it's not nearly as deep. So will you fall as far with a quarterback class that is not as deep going into the next year as you did this year, where 6 quarterbacks were taken with the first 12 picks? We always talk about the market is what the market bears. But as far as on the field stuff, JD, I want to move just for a second, Blaine, I know you got something for him, to the Big 12 a little bit here. I am very, very bullish on Utah right now. And again, I say this every show. We don't make predictions until the end of fall camp. I need to know who's where. I need to know who's hurt and who wins what job. Who got a DUI, whatever, who got arrested, whatever. Outside of this vacuum that's going to be created by Texas and Oklahoma leaving, who are a couple teams, and I'm sure Utah's probably one of them with the Dark Knight coming back at quarterback, that you're looking at the Big 12? Is it Kansas State? Is it, Texas Tech? with Joey McGuire as a team that I think is fascinating, or maybe it's a Houston or a Cincinnati or a UCF or one of these new teams. Kind of, who do you see filling that vacuum a little bit this year?
Yeah, I think those first two you mentioned have a lot of my attention. Like Kansas State, especially with Dylan Edwards. If Avery Johnson pops how I think a lot of people in college football expect him to pop, that could be a total game changer for the Little Apple. Texas Tech, they don't have a lot of returning production, but y'all know this, the way that they have gone about the eval process and the way they have developed internally, they've got a lot of guys that I think most folks in college football don't know about just yet that they feel really excited about in Lubbock. I would go to war for Joey McGuire.
I'm same here, man.
Been around him for a short period of time. I think that matters. Big 12 feels wide open. So those two teams I'm watching closely. Little dark horse action here. Oklahoma State is just fine to kind of fly under the radar every single year. And then Mike Gundy and company are pretty much a cockroach team every year. Like, it doesn't matter who's on their team. It doesn't matter who's coming back. It doesn't matter who's on the staff. As long as Mike Gundy is there, they are hard to kill. They will not die. So Oklahoma State, I think, is going to be right in the mix as well.
Yeah, I will say, I'd probably play my best running back at the beginning of the year. I wouldn't wait 3 games. But that's, again, there's stuff goes on internally that we
You sound like you coached at some point in your life.
Maybe for a couple. All
right, JD, I want to talk about a team and a guy. Every year, this is the year. Let's talk about Nebraska.
Here we go.
All right, Dylan Raiola threw up a couple good passes in the spring game, and now he's the almighty, the all-apparent. Now my question to you, JD, will Dylan Raiola save Nebraska?
Will he save Nebraska from 5-7? Yes. Are they going to win the Big Ten? Like, probably not. The tough thing I have a hard time getting my mind around is how Nebraska has continued to be snake bitten. Like, it's been one score loss stat after one score loss stat, regardless of who the head coach is. I look back at last year, 5 one-score losses. In 4 of those one-score losses, the quarterback alone accounted for 2 or more turnovers. So the way that I'm looking at this thing, you bring back 79% of your production on defense that allowed 18 points a game, and the DC who ran the whole operation, who's going to be a head coach this time next year, and Tony White. If Dylan Raiola just is like serviceable at quarterback, if he goes 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and doesn't give the ball to the other team twice a game, Nebraska's going to be a 6+ win football team. So does that save Nebraska? I think you'd have a lot of folks feel some relief to make a bowl game. And then beyond that, who knows? But I think he does change the ceiling. Like, there's no way around it that he is the most talented arm they've had in that building for the better part of the last, 4 years, 5 years, y'all. So I think that matters, how he translates and how long it takes him to get acclimated to college football. I don't think we should expect him to just go out there and be what he was in that spring game every single Saturday. But even with that being said, the ceiling is different, and I think just being serviceable, being efficient, and asking to be Superman, as Jake says, he doesn't have to be Batman, he's got to be Robin. They should be in good shape.
And the schedule, I think, lines up for them.
Yeah,
true. You know, if you're a new quarterback, like we always say, fan bases of new quarterbacks, and I'm not talking about young quarterbacks, but new quarterbacks, you got to become a surfer, man. You got to be able to ride the wave, the ups and the downs. But I mean, there's just dude's got some moxie. I like the way. I don't want to sound like Chris Sims, but I like the way he moves.
Yeah, I don't think they'll mind.
Week 2, Colorado, Nebraska. 2 fan bases that are probably not competing for their conference championships, probably not making the college football playoff. How much juice is that game gonna have in Lincoln, y'all? That's gonna be fun.
I'm gonna tell you something, JD. And look, that first week, and I've said it multiple times, North Dakota State, the training room isn't thin after you play North Dakota State, right? If you're Colorado, week 1. This isn't, offense, I guess, meant, but like Bethune-Cookman, right? Or Bishop Sycamore.
Hey, what the
that you're that you're playing week 1. And the funniest thing about Lincoln, JD, I'll never forget this. When I was coaching in South Alabama, we flew out there to play them. And we had gone to, Tennessee and all these hostile environments on the road. So I'm like, Nebraska, they're nuts about football. Like, this is going to be, probably shake the bus. They may be the smartest fans ever because it's reverse psychology, right? We got off the bus and they're like, hey guys, welcome to Lincoln, like in Nebraska stuff. Like, hey, y'all play good. And I'm looking around like on the bus ride, I'm like, telling my guys, I'm like, MF these people. Like, they want to see your downfall. They hate you, this, that, and the other. We get off the bus and they're like, hi. They're like, when Steve calls
there's like the interview, there's some fat kid on the corner.
Yeah, it's just like on the interview. And then we go, I'm trying to tell my guys, I'm like, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Then we go out and play the first half, right? Didn't play well in the first half. Running back in the locker room, and you got to go through in between the gates, and their fans are like, good half, guys.
Really?
Like, good. I'm like, these are the smartest. This is the smartest mind trick ever.
I didn't get that experience in Columbus, Ohio.
No, see, that's what I'm saying, but that's what you expect. Like, I go down to LSU, I expect a 9-year-old to be flipping me off, right? I expect a guy to invite me to his tailgate to eat some duck sausage, and then I get there, he tells me, duck down and get it. I expect that. But in Nebraska,
rough,
like, they're like, hey, we're praying for you. And I was like, God, how do I get mad at you?
That's why I want to root for them. That's why I want to root for Nebraska.
Did the duck sausage thing really happen, or?
We don't talk about it.
Okay. All right.
But
that is
a lot happened there. Jay.
Smart, very smart. Only one I've ever seen do it. Only one I've ever seen do it.
All right, let's go to HB with a $5 donations for you, JD. Says, do you think bonuses / NIL incentives could be arranged for players to participate in bowl games? Also, don't forget, David Cohn is a criminal.
What did I do?
David, you know what you did.
Who was that? Humping Badger?
Yeah, I was Humping Badger.
Oh, one, that is a wild username. Two, it feels like if money's the problem with this whole thing, right? Guys are worried about making money in the NFL and what it could jeopardize there. You would think money could be the solution. My concern is like that better be a big NIL incentive if I'm risking playing in the NFL and whatever that would entail. So I like the idea. I think revenue sharing with the whole TV structure, like there might be a little bit more zeros to that check you could write to get them to play in the bowl game. But I like the idea. I just don't know the execution, how that would work out.
Well, you know what they say, mo money, mo problems.
Yeah, this is what Biggie said.
Bring on the problems.
You were nicer to Humping Badger than you needed to be or should have been, so that's very nice of you.
Yeah, you hooked him up to jumper cables and almost electrocuted him to death, David. JD, it's always great when you're on here, brother. Congrats on the success, what you guys got going on over there at On3. Love watching you guys continue to grow. Tell everybody where they can find your stuff, and look, man, we're going to blink twice. It's going to be September.
Hey, it's about here. We're going to be at the Omni in Dallas here before we know it. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be awesome. If you want to listen on podcast, you type in The Hard Count with JD PicKell, podcast, Apple, Spotify, whatever you want to do, we're on there. And then we are live on the On3 YouTube channel 3 times a week. So after y'all wrap up here, come check us out over there at 11 a.m. Eastern. Maybe called The Hard Count, but it's easy to find. JD, appreciate you, buddy. Always great as usual. Congrats, Eastern Michigan. You've got your guy.
Can't wait to see you on a Saturday at 2:30 on the sticks, JD.
Yep. All right, JD PicKell, one of our favorites. See you, man. Always great stuff there. He's again, an up-and-comer. Really excited to be able to get him on. Everybody out there on YouTube, thanks for joining us. Man, hit that subscribe button if you hadn't already. We really, really appreciate it. Whether you love it, whether you hate it, or whether you're kind of medium about it, we're just glad you're watching.